Hello, everyone. How's it going? How are you doing? What's happening? It is Sunday again, which means it's time to record Crimes Against Folk.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Ed.
Oh, your video's going all wonky again. Okay, that's all right.
I see that.
We'll work on it.
I'm like a Tootsie Roll.
Do you like Tootsie Rolls?
No, I never did.
Neither. I've never been a fan of the Tootsie Roll, unfortunately.
I know. I always really wanted to. Like when I was a kid, I would just keep eating them and then spitting them out because I was like, it's going to grow on me because they sound and look delicious.
Yeah.
But they are not. They are not delicious.
I'm the same in the same boat. Like I keep thinking like I'll keep trying them and I'm like, all right, this time I'm gonna get on the Tootsie Roll bandwagon. And nope.
It's the same with candy corn.
Yep.
Do you feel that way too?
Yep.
Wow. See, Ed and I have like similar candy taste. So this makes a lot of sense.
It's true. Yeah. I'm not a fan of candy corn either, but I keep trying it because it's everywhere.
And it looks so good. Why is it not good?
I don't know. I really don't know.
It's sad.
It is so bad. Sorry. Hot candy takes right off the bat here.
Yep. Get the Twizzler nibs, you guys. Yep. Don't get the candy corn or the Tootsie. I don't know. Maybe you guys like them. That's cool.
That's fine.
I mean, clearly somebody does because they sell a lot of
Apparently lots of people do because it's everywhere.
Maybe everyone just has the same problem. They're going to like it this time. And then they don't. They just keep getting it.
It's like drinking alcohol or beer, It's like you either acquire the taste for it or you don't, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so, huh?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Ed.
I'm Ashley.
And we are... we're back with a story time episode of Crimes Against Folk for y'all. This is going to be pretty fun and semi-relevant to sort of the genesis of the name and the podcast, which is kind of fun for us. And we just, again, want to mention our new sponsor. We don't have the hardware yet. But we just got a new sponsor, Electro Voice, otherwise known as EV, purveyors of fine audio equipment worldwide.
Yep.
And we just wrangled a sponsorship with them. So thank you to EV for supporting the podcast. Thanks to our patrons for supporting the podcast. And we want to make sure you guys know about what we're doing on Patreon. And if you are a patron already, we've set up a special private Facebook group. And we're going to message that link out to you through Patreon. I know it's a little weird, but we have to get in touch with you if we are not friends of ours. And you don't feel bad if you're not friends of ours. We're pretty particular. So, but
I'm not.
No,
you should definitely friend request me. I'll probably accept it.
Actually, Ashley's much more.
I have like 4,000 friends or something stupid like that, and I only know like 50 of those people.
So, we're going to get that link out to you. Make sure to get in contact with us. You can also email us at crimesagainstfolkpod@gmail.com if you need to reach us for any reason. But that way, we'll make sure that you get announcements from things that go up on Patreon, because we put up a lot of stuff on Patreon now. So
yeah, and we noticed not all that you don't always get those notifications necessarily. And a lot of our patrons are saying they're not getting them. So that's why we set up the Facebook group to make sure you get them. So we're going to be posting most everything on both places, and both places are exclusive to our patrons, which is only $5 a month to get that entry level thing. But like, you get the most things out of the entry level, you guys. It's only $5 a month.
Yep.
That's one Starbucks coffee, really. And then you get to have fun with us, I think. I think we're kind of fun. I don't know. And our patrons are definitely fun. Ed and I are questionably fun.
Yeah, questionably fun.
But that way we send the link out to you for the pre-show, which you get a little pre-show every single Sunday for being just the $5 a month patron. And we'll send that out to the Facebook group, so you make sure you get it there. And we'll also send it out to Patreon. We'll continue to do that. Plus some other stuff. And we're going to start making some fun interactive things, especially since we are changing our format a little bit, and kind of going back and forth between having a guest and then telling a story. And we want to get you guys more involved with that kind of thing. So yeah, today's story day. I'm pretty excited about it. This is something Ed put together for us.
Yeah, today is a story day, and we figured one of the most popular stories kind of in the folk world is the infamous day that Bob Dylan went electric.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so I want to do a little digging into it and try to get a couple answers and retell the story, because again, it is also slightly relevant to our band as well. And I thought, again, briefly, I would just recount that story first. So the reason we named our podcast Crimes Against Folk was from an incident that happened at the, was it 2019, last year, the Tucson Folk Festival?
Yeah, it must have been, right?
I think it was.
Yeah, because 2020 was canceled.
Right,
so
we've only played it
before.
once live. And I believe it was last year. So we were invited to play on the main stage at the 2019 Tucson Folk Festival. It was a really great show. I mean, their staff were amazing.
Yeah.
Like their backstage staff were incredible. And there was a really big crowd there. I mean, there must have been, 100 or so in the seats, and then, countless numbers of people just walking by. It was really big.
Yeah, it was definitely one of our more well-attended sets at a festival. And,
yeah.
We were so blessed and lucky to play them main stage, and we just had the best time at the festival. We were having so much fun, and we felt really special. Apparently, we sold some kind of a record of CDs at that festival too.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, which was super exciting. So
yeah.
So we're like thinking we kind of nailed it.
Yeah, and I mean,
we did.
We did. It was a good show. I thought we played really well, and the audience really liked it. So yeah, we were kind of flying high a little bit, and so we get done. It was maybe a 6-song set or something like that. We get done, and we get all our stuff and leave the stage. And as I'm putting my guitar away, this guy kind of marches up to me, and he says, you're not supposed to play that here, right? And I was kind of shocked. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he kind of, looked at the guitar, and he's like, you're not supposed to play that here. And I was like, well, I mean, I didn't know that we couldn't, I guess I'm just trying to be your guys' Dylan. And then he was like, oh, so you did know. Clearly not getting the joke. Clearly not in a joking mood. That's for sure. And then he...
And also, trying to bust you, for what exactly? For playing your instrument?
Playing an electric guitar at a folk festival. And so... and so then he marched away. And one of the other guys came up and kind of apologized for him. And he explained, oh, yeah, it's a recent rule change that people used to not be able to play electric guitars. And I'm pretty sure we looked beforehand and we didn't see a rule. And then we were vindicated because, okay, they just changed it. I think it was 3 years prior that they had just changed the rule. But apparently, I guess some people either didn't get the message or didn't want to get the... Yeah, maybe they shot the messenger, I think. And so So we got yelled at, and I think he told a couple of other people, and we went over and talked to, I think, the organizer, one of the organizers.
Yeah, and he was really nice, and he was just like, he was already like, oh yeah, I've heard about this. Like, word traveled really fast. This guy decided to make a very big deal about it very, very quickly and just spread it to all of the people on the board and like all of the, like, just totally unnecessary, because Ed played an electric guitar. It was absolutely insane. And again, it was just the one guy. He was the only one who cared. Nobody else cared.
Yeah, no one else ever came up to us and said anything.
In fact, there were other electric instruments on the festival.
Oh, sure.
Like, not like he was talking to our friend Virginia was there. And
right.
Our friend Virginia Cannon, she hosts really cool shows in Tucson, and she came, and I know her from Nashville, and she came to the show, and we were just chit-chatting, and I guess she walked up to this guy was watching another band on the stage, and she's like, hey, what about that guy up there? He's playing an electric bass. And he looks at her, he goes, that's a bass, Virginia. Like it's any different. I don't know, whatever.
Oh my gosh.
So bass guitar, electric bass is allowed and not electric guitar. Show me where that's written somewhere on this contract, man. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It was so silly. So I think it was in the car ride back. We were talking about it, and I don't know if Michelle had encountered anything, because Michelle was with us, and I don't know if she encountered anything. Was she with us?
I don't think she was there.
Oh, I'm confusing that with another Tucson trip, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because I know we've been to Tucson with her before.
She came, when we actually played Virginia's show. That's what
it was. Yeah. So anyway, we were kind of chatting about it on the way back, and I said, well, I guess I'm just committing crimes against folk. And that kind of just sat with us, and Ash made this really funny, like, took one of her mom's like watercolor paintings.
It was Tara's.
It was Tara's watercolor painting. It just put was it Meggie, or was it just a dog?
I think it was just a dog.
Okay.
It was just a really cute dog, like sitting in the grass, this watercolor, really nice watercolor, like just a very pretty scene.
Yeah.
I need to find this.
Yeah. And
I'm going to search for it.
And Ash just put Crimes Against Folk on it. It was like album cover.
Yeah. I was like,
this
really is our
funny.
album cover for our alter ego band, Crimes Against Folk.
It was really funny. And then, so fast forward to when we're seriously going to start the podcast, and we needed a name, and I had always had it in my head to write a song called Crimes Against Folk, kind of based on that experience. And when Ash and I kind of finished most of it, and we started talking about the podcast, she was like, that's it. That's the name, Crimes Against Folk. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. So that's how we got the name, which you guys might have heard the story before. Mm-hmm. But in lieu of wanting to tell some famous music stories and for you guys on this podcast and do the research behind it, we thought no better time than to tell you the famous Bob Dylan Goes Electric story.
So, kind of to give a little bit of setup to this particular story, of course, most of us know who Bob Dylan is. If you don't, he's probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, songwriters who's ever lived. Originally from Minnesota, kind of got his upbringing in the Greenwich Village folk scene in the 60s in New York City. And once he started, he kind of hit at that right time for the social change movement of the 60s. I mean, the 60s in America was an incredible decade of musical evolution as well as social evolution. They kind of went hand in hand. And so Dylan had, started recording music, and it started becoming very, very popular. And of course, he started playing at the Newport Folk Festival, which is what all the really big folk artists did, to try and get a leg up. And, I watched a few videos of him at the Newport Folk Festival back in like 63 and 1964. And it's really interesting. It reminded me a lot of when we played at Flagstaff Folk Festival. I mean, people sitting very quietly outside, listening to a single person or maybe a duo playing folk music. It was very similar, and that's kind of how folk festivals were, And before 1965, he really had started. He had some really like critical darlings. The Times They Are a Changin', that particular album was just a mega hit, and again, it was hitting at the right time. He was writing a lot of politically and socially charged stuff, and so that was the bulk of his audience, was a lot of people who were really on board with that movement. Another side of Bob Dylan came out earlier in 1965, and that really people were pretty divided about that album. It seems like people were he had started to move away from the more socially conscious stuff, and he started to move over into more of a a bit more esoteric lyrics. They're a bit more cryptic. They're not as kind of in your face with the political stuff as they were as his previous albums were. And so he'd already kind of garnered a little ire from his fan base, and I'm sure the press, So, but he was still very popular. He was still selling lots of albums. And so naturally he got invited back to the Newport Folk Festival in 65. He had already been working on a new album by that point. And this album was going to be sort of a half acoustic, half electric album. And one of the songs he had released, like right before his appearance at Newport, was "Like a Rolling Stone," which is arguably one of his most famous songs. It was, you have to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe that's where the Rolling Stones got their name from.
Oh, I don't know.
But you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But so yeah, that song had come out and it had started to crawl up in the charts, but it was so different from what he had done before. Another Side was a completely acoustic album. And so hearing this crazy like electric sound coming out of Bob Dylan was a little jarring to people. But I think the expectation was he was going to come by the Newport Folk Festival and do what he did a couple of years prior and play a lot of his really good hits, just acoustic and harmonica, that sort of thing. The night before his performance, however, he decided to change course completely. After he had heard the Paul Butterfield Blues Band play one of the other nights in Newport, I think he just kind of had a shock of like, well, wait a minute, I need to do something different. And so he contacted another keyboardist there, Al Cooper, and members of the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, and said, hey, let's play a set. I want you guys to play my set with me, with your full band and your electric guitars and your bass and drums, everything. We're going to do the set. And they rehearsed the night before to do this set. So no one knew he was going to. There was really like a game time decision for Bob Dylan. Yes, thank you. Yeah, it was Muddy Waters. Muddy Waters.
Yeah, Muddy
That's
Waters
right, because
said,
the Rolling Stones were big fans of Muddy Waters and
yeah,
all
like
those blues
Rolling.
guys.
Yeah, they
Um,
saw it. This says, according to some journalists, Jones named the band during a call to Jazz News. When asked by journalists for a band's name, Jones saw a Muddy Waters LP lying on the floor. One of the tracks was Rolling Stone.
nice, cool.
That's according to something here on Wikipedia. So you can fact check that later.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I couldn't remember if that was a story, but that makes more sense now. And coincidentally, Bob Dylan was a big fan of blues and R&B. Like, that's kind of, and you can hear it in his music. Like that's where he got a lot of his inspiration for writing his songs and performing the way that he did. And I think that was a driving factor in how he wanted to do this set in 65. He's like, there's this great blues band. Why don't I just play these songs with them? And so they rehearsed all night and got up in front of the audience. And Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul, and Mary had introduced him. They had played right before him, and so they had to introduce him. And then he goes out and just blows the doors off of everybody, and rips into I don't want to work on Maggie's farm no more, and this like heavy kind of blues rock beat that absolutely no one was expecting, because he made the decision to do this a night before. So the stories of the crowd's reactions are actually kind of conflicting. There's several accounts of how the audience reacted. The popular story is that the audience was reacting to Dylan changing his sound completely because they wanted the freewheeling Bob Dylan kind of acoustic single guitar harmonica. That's what they want. That's the Dylan they wanted. And I think there were some people who were legitimately upset about that. Some stories say the booing in the audience and the outcry from the audience came from members of the press who similarly were expecting something much like what he had done before. Some people had mused that a lot of them were booing because the sound was so bad. And this is a pretty valid argument that I would say, because, a lot of these folk festivals back then, they were folk festivals. They weren't set up for full-on amplification, easily, especially when they were expecting Bob Dylan to perform a regular old acoustic set, and he comes out with all this stuff.
Yeah, that would be a little like, whoa.
Yeah, and they're playing as loud as they possibly can. Like they are just digging in, gas pedal on the floor. Like it's loud. I watched the first song that they played. I watched a video of it, and a lot of the links and the YouTube stuff and all the news articles are referencing are going to be in the show notes today, so you can watch them, as you can watch and read the stuff that we looked into as well. And yeah, it was loud. It was loud for a folk festival, And this kind of leads into the famous story of Peter Yarrow being upset that Dylan had changed his sound. That's what everybody thought, and he kind of made the comment of wanting to take an axe to the cables. He was so mad. Well, I found an interview of him much later that qualified the statement, because most people, again, thought it was because Dylan was playing his songs electric. And Peter Yarrow was like, no, that's not it at all. No, I mean, sorry, not Peter Yarrow, Pete Seeger. Pete Seeger was the guy who famously said that, I want to take an axe to the sound cables. And he said that because he ran up to the sound engineer and said, you've got to fix the sound. It sounds terrible. No one can understand what's happening, because they had to turn the microphones down so far because the stage volume was so loud.
Which we've been there. It's like the most painful experience.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I get it.
It's so bad when you have bad sound anywhere. It's so bad. And And so Peter Yarrow was like yelling at the sound guy, like turn this down, and they were like, I don't know what we can do, and he was just so frustrated at the sound situation. He's like, I would have taken an axe to all the cables in the sound equipment. He was mad about the sound. He wasn't mad about Dylan playing electric at all. He didn't care. He loved Dylan either way, whether it was acoustic or electric.
Wow. That's amazing. So this is like a classic game of telephone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how a lot of these reactions are.
Yeah.
Like, you talk to one person and they say, yeah, the crowd was booing because they wanted the old Dylan. You talk to another person, say, oh, it was the press booing because they didn't like it. And you talk to another person, it's like, there wasn't really that much booing. Like, people actually kind of liked it. It's... Yeah,
well, and depending on where you were standing in the like, I can imagine the audience was huge. So depending on where you were standing, you might have heard different things.
Mm-hmm. That's a big part of it, is like, yeah, depending on where you were standing. And again, this show was so loud.
Were you able to find any quotes from Bob Dylan himself about what happened?
I found a couple. I think he was a little miffed about the whole situation because the thing is, it followed him after this show. That's the main problem, is that after the show, I'd seen a couple of interviews. Actually, Scorsese did a documentary on him, and they talked to him a little bit about it around that time. And yeah, he was a little irritated that people were booing him at concerts, at that concert, and shortly thereafter on his world tour. There's a really the famous situation of him playing in London at the Royal Albert Hall, I believe it was, and people, a couple people were famously yelling out "Judas," in the crowd.
What?
Like,
wow.
Because he apparently betrayed them and crucified them on a cross, I guess. I don't know. It was so dumb. And he was like...
Why would you even go to the show at that point?
I don't know, man. That's a good question.
Just to heckle Bob Dylan? Seriously? That's crazy.
And, after his set at Newport 65, I think Pete Seeger or Peter Yarrow had gone up to him and kind of played with him. Hey, can you come out and do an encore later and just do like a couple acoustic songs? He didn't want to, but he did anyway. He went out and played Mr. Tambourine Man.
Aww.
And It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, which is pretty apt for the situation.
Poor Bob.
And his demeanor on stage had changed a bit too. Like he was playing kind of a rock concert.
Yeah.
He didn't do the concert like what we would do. Like we sit up there and maybe we chatter a little with the audience. It's a little more intimate. This was not that show. He went up there, he charged right into the songs, he played the one song after the next, and then they all unplugged their gear and walked off stage. And that was the show. They played 3 songs and they were done.
They were like a real rock band.
Exactly.
Sometimes we're a rock band, though.
Sometimes, yeah.
And fun fact, Ed did used to only play acoustic guitar. The first, I think, couple years of Witherword's existence, in fact. And then one day he bought, he like showed up with an electric guitar. I'm like, oh, we're doing this now, huh? He's like, yep, this is what we're doing. I'm like, cool.
Yep. And no one booed, to my knowledge.
No, nobody booed. I did not boo. The press did not boo.
Yeah, so I think the Newport 65 show was so interesting, just because I think again it lays bare a little bit about what can happen. It happens in every sort of music genre, I would think, but I think it's most pronounced in the folk world, where lots of people draw strict demarcations between what they consider folk and everything else. And I think there are, that attitude is changing. I think it's very slowly changing. but
I
it
think so
still
too.
happens.
I mean, I get it when, I get it, for example, when we show up to the Far West or Folk Alliance and there's no amplification and there's also not a lot of room. So I get
Yeah.
why they're like, you're at a folk conference. Can everybody just play your acoustic guitars,
Yeah.
in the rooms unplugged? Because if we were all bringing our speakers to through every or amps throughout the rooms, and it would just clog up stuff so much more. So I think there is a time and a place for that, but ultimately, like, music is a sense of expression, and if you feel like you can play folk music with an electric guitar, then like who's to tell you that you can't? Who is this folk police that's actually, arresting people for these crimes against folk that they're creating? And
Yeah.
yeah, it is Bob Dylan. Did he create the first crimes against folk? We'll have to look into that.
I
Maybe
doubt it.
there's probably earlier examples of this, but this is
Yeah.
possibly the most famous one.
This is the most famous one, I would think. I doubt he's the first, but this is definitely because, again, it came at an interesting time. I mean, this is 65, so we're in the middle of this crazy decade in American history, and the previous couple of years beforehand, Dylan was writing all this socially conscious stuff, and then he pivoted and started doing more kind of esoteric, but also hard rockin' stuff, and I think for the people who had joined on as fans of his more socially conscious kind of traditional folk, kind of Woody Guthrie style folk, they were taken aback. Like whether he was a direct influence on his music or not, Woody Guthrie was kind of that artist until Bob Dylan came along, alongside, and then Bob Dylan kind of ran alongside him as that kind of social folk artist. And then Bob Dylan's like, I don't feel like doing that anymore. And he started shifting his songwriting and his sound to a more electric, kind of heavy, rock and roll, or what you might consider roots rock now. It's kind of a precursor to that, I think. So, when you mix folk and blues and rock and roll, that's, I think, what he was trying to accomplish with this
That's
stuff.
Americana.
Well, it is now.
Because you can't call it folk because you'll get in trouble.
Yeah. Exactly. That's Americana right now.
No, but I mean, again, if you think it's folk, then it's folk. What's the big deal? But I mean, I feel like you don't see that word on its own that much anymore, and I wonder if this is why. Like, you see indie folk, you see folk rock, you see folk blues or blues folk. I don't know which comes first. You see those kinds of things. So I don't know. Maybe just they wanted to widen the umbrella, and so they created subgenres.
And I think that's a natural evolution as again, the idea of when you say folk music, I think most people will think of older Bob Dylan, older, Joni Mitchell, kind of Laurel Canyon, Greenwich Village, groups of people. That's what, when you say just folk, that's what people think of. At least right now. Like, maybe in 100 years that'll change. Who knows? But we need all these extra modifiers because you have to distinguish yourself from that seismic presence in folk music. You have to really differentiate what you're doing from that. Otherwise, people may lose interest. People will get confused. We're still too close to that 60s folk sound to really call what we do, or a lot of people to call what they do, folk music. That's really, I think, what it is that you have to differentiate yourself from the 60s folk that really set the rules for the genre, in everybody's minds. Like, folk music goes back far earlier than that. A lot of it has its roots in, African, like, slave music, and a lot of it has its roots in Appalachia, that kind of stuff. But it all kind of solidified in the 60s, I would say. And so if you don't want to be thought of as a group that does that music, you have to call yourself folk pop, or,
Yeah,
power
folk
folk
pop. Yeah.
or blues folk or whatever, or Americana or whatever, to differentiate yourself from the 60s folk that everybody still knows is iconic.
And this gets deep too. Like Ed and I did a study on this on one of our drives one day, because we were talking about our genre, which if you guys know Wither Word music, you know that our genre is a little confusing because we just like music, and we cover a few genres from song to song. So I don't know that we've been criticized for this before. I don't see it as a criticism. I'm totally fine with it. I prefer artists that actually jump genres from song to song a little bit. I don't like the same sound throughout an album or throughout a band's history. I like things to sound different, but I know that's not necessarily the popular belief, but it is what we do within our band. So we're trying to think of what we could do to kind of make what I just said a genre so we could explain it better to people. And what we came up with was we study all of these subgenres under the folk umbrella. That's what we came up with. And so when someone says, what kind of music do you do? We study the many subgenres under the folk umbrella. And they go, oh, because that somehow makes sense to people. Funny enough, we kind of stopped getting asked that question because I think it's becoming more acceptable to not necessarily have a genre per band, maybe per song. But yeah, we discovered all of the different subgenres of folk in this process. And one of them is dark folk. One of them is prog folk, which is kind of similar to dark folk. And it's just how it sounds. It's dark folk. There's pop folk, blues folk. Do you remember some of the other weird ones?
I don't offhand.
Folktronica is a new one I just learned, by the way.
There was electronic folk.
Electronic folk, yeah. Folktronica, electronic folk. I think it's the same.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, there's so many. There are so many. There's so many different genres for it because people need to differentiate themselves in the folk world now. So that particular event, I think, may have been like the first kind of way to be like, all right, well, here's a new version of folk.
Yeah.
Which I think people just generally termed rock and roll. That's it is kind of what it sounded like. And that was something that people knew. You couldn't call it like folk rock yet. That wasn't much of a thing yet until I think the later 60s. But yeah, like we've kind of run into that problem of classifying what we are because we can't call ourselves folk. It just doesn't, and it doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't make sense to anyone who listens to us.
Yeah. So. I mean, that said, I feel like we can totally hang at the folk festivals and the folk conferences. Like, I feel like for most people, they go, oh yeah, cool. This is a cool, kind of modern folk duo.
It's changing. I think the attitudes are changing.
Minus, one grumpy guy. There's always going to be one grumpy guy. Listen.
Yep.
If I can tell you what I've learned as a performer in the last 20 years I've been a performer is there's always a grumpy guy. And when I say guy, I'm not giving guy a gender. I'm just saying grumpy guy. Could be a woman, could be a man. There's always a grumpy guy in the audience, and they're going to complain about something.
That's true.
I remember being in a band, my old band Delcoa, and we had this long-standing Sunday show. We played every Sunday at this bar in Scottsdale, and it became an event. And we would pack the place every Sunday, and we had so much fun. There was our little home spot. We couldn't wait for Sundays. We barely got paid anything, and we didn't care. We just loved it. And we all were off, doing our other cover shows during the week to make real money. But every Sunday we would show up and we would just have fun, and we'd make a little bit of money and play in the corner of this small bar. And again, we would pack it. I mean, we had Steve Gadd showed up and played with us there. If you guys don't know who Steve Gadd is, he's a very famous drummer. We had the Gin Blossoms showed up one day and sat in with us, like the entire band. Well, the ones that I think the lead singer passed away, or someone passed away in the Gin. I can't remember. Now, obviously, that person was not there, and then the lead singer definitely wasn't there, but it was everybody else. just so much fun and so many birthdays and things like that. And we would pack it and we'd all have a good time. And we probably made that bar so much money on these random Sundays that were normally really dead. And then one day, one person at the bar complained and we lost the gig. And to this day, this baffles me because I'm like, why? And the guys they were such nice people, the owners. And I mean, we weren't even mad at them. We were just so confused. We're like, why? And they're like, we love you guys so much. It's the neighborhood bar and the person that complained is the neighbor. And, they just want to show up on Sundays and kind of sip wine. I'm like, but you're making so much more money with us here. Why? And they're like, you guys... They weren't wrong about this, but they were like, you guys are too big for us. You need to go find a bigger venue. And we did. We moved on to the Wrigley Mansion in Phoenix, and and we were able to fit way more people there. We could play way louder, and it was way more fun. But I still just cannot, to this day, I'm like, the one grumpy guy at the bar, one grumpy guy ruins it. Grumpy guy at the festival, got to ruin our time.
Counterpoint.
Yes.
Musicians are also disposable. So
womp.
They could have reading between the lines, they could get anybody.
Yeah, but
which is nonsense.
They could have, but nobody was gonna pack a place like our band could on a Sunday at that point in time. We've been building it up for a long time and just it became this party. But I think they were right though. Ultimately, we were just too big for them. But it was too bad because they were doing quite well on those days.
Well, what was the aftermath of the infamous concert, Newport 65? Shortly thereafter, Dylan released his newest album, which was half acoustic and half electric. And he would go on a world tour, and that's how he played these shows. He would do half of the show acoustic, and then bring out the band, as they would come to be known, and play a full electric set. And people just were not having it. Again, back to the famous performance in England, where he was called Judas a couple of times during those sets.
That's like the old school internet trolling, as you just yell things from the audience.
Absolutely. And I think I would imagine the media would have something to do with it. I think they kind of stoked the dislike of the electric Dylan.
Yeah.
Until it became normal. But Dylan was not happy about that experience, and he wouldn't play Newport again until 2002.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yep, 37 years. He did not go to the Newport Folk Festival, and he finally returned in 2002.
How'd it go in 2002?
Not bad. He wore a wig and like kind of face.
Did he play electric or acoustic?
Oh, he played electric. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was there playing with a band.
Yeah.
Not the band, if I recall, but with a band.
Okay.
It was. There's a book by let's see, what's his name? Elijah Wald, and it's called Dylan Goes Electric, and it's sort of it chronicles this one moment in history, and sort of posits it as a sort of turning point for music during this incredibly turbulent decade. And I think it'd be interesting. I have not read this, to be fair, but I did see a couple of interviews with the author, and I think he's got an interesting perspective on this that enters into the bigger narrative of how music evolved in the 60s and how folk music evolved as well. So we actually saw Dylan once.
We did.
Yeah.
In Nashville, right?
In a parking lot.
Yeah.
We're in a street on the side.
I got a hot tip.
Yeah, our friend Joe Bidewell, was at this fest. It was some festival they were having down on the riverfront, and he's like, "Hey, come on down here. Dylan's playing," and so we went there.
Yeah, we're like, well, we don't have tickets. He's like, no, I found like the only spot that you can actually see the stage from the street.
Yeah.
in Nashville. So yeah, we went. There was probably 50 people there watching, and so us and 50 other people got the hot tip of like how to watch this free concert in Nashville. It wasn't free.
We watched.
It was for us.
And I think who was after that? Was it Wilco after that?
Oh, yeah.
We saw one other group. I think it was Wilco.
It was. I love Wilco. If you guys don't know Wilco music, you're in for a real treat. You should look them up. They're kind of one of these independent bands that did very, very well. You know, they're
an indie,
they're big, but
indie rock band out of Chicago, I believe.
Yeah,
and
just brilliant songwriters and really, really cool stuff.
I think like they're an interesting band because of their like career. Like their career is just about as interesting as their music. So
yeah, they were one of the first bands to kind of like, they had the record deal thing, and it went real south, and so they ended up building a home studio, and they're one of the first bands to self-release music out of their home studio and have it do really well.
Yeah,
and
it was really good.
They kind of helped pave the way for independent musicians like us.
Absolutely.
Yep. Speaking of crimes against folk, there you go. Mini crimes against folk bonus story for you about Wilco.
Yeah. So that is kind of a little recap of the day that or the night that Dylan went electric.
Yep.
It was really interesting. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention was where I brought up the Elijah Wald thing. It was funny that he mentioned that other people were playing electric guitar at Newport that year, but Dylan was the only one that got crucified for it.
Of course. I'm telling you, this is exactly what happened to us at the Tucson Folk Festival. We're not the only ones that were playing electric, but we're the only ones that got in trouble for it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yep. So,
well, great job
history,
on this, Ed. Great research and great storytelling, and thank you for sharing this story with us and for keeping it alive. I think it's really important to continue these crimes against folk stories throughout time, so we can hopefully learn to not have history repeat itself, even though it apparently is, but we do what we can.
Yeah, I think the lesson is just that, there's a few lessons I guess I would take away from this. One is that artists gonna artist. If you get too hung up on an artist's sound, if you get too hung up on an artist changing their sound, then I don't think that's a problem with them. And our artists definitely have the license to change their sound whenever they like. And I think people got the wrong idea about what Bob Dylan was really about based on his first few albums. And they thought he was always going to be this kind of folky, Woody Guthrie clone. And he didn't really want to do that for his entire life. So he decided to change, and it really made people upset. And this always happens.
Yeah.
It always happens when a band changes their sound. And look, you don't have to like what they're doing anymore, but you don't have to listen to them anymore, but you shouldn't run around London calling them Judases. That's a bit extreme.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't expect a human to stay the same forever. So why would you? But I get it. Like, I remember people freaking out when I dyed my hair blonde, and Ed, when you shaved your head. It's like changing your appearance or changing your sound. I mean, people change, and that's okay. And like Ed, you put that very well. Like, you don't have to like it, and that's okay too.
There's a few artists I don't really listen to anymore because their sound changed. I'm like,
same here.
I don't really like it, so that's fine.
Same here. Same here. And it's not that it's not good. It just doesn't speak to me anymore. And that's okay.
And I'm not angry about it. Like, I'm not going to go burn all of my, T-shirts of them or whatever, or
Right.
that's just, you can't get that invested in somebody because they're going to change. Like it's very likely they're going to change the way they do things. And so I think this is the lesson to get from it, is that the artist is going to do what they want to do, regardless of how much you love them, regardless of how much you buy their stuff, regardless of all the letters you send them. It doesn't matter. Like, in the end, they're going to do what they're going to do. And you should be happy about that, because they have the freedom to do that. You shouldn't be upset because they're not catering to your tastes. That's a little unfair, I think.
You can be disappointed, though. Like,
yeah. You can be disappointed.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
That's okay.
So I think that's the main lesson we can draw from this episode, and hopefully we will have it occurring less as time goes on, but not if the marketers have anything to say about it.
Yeah. But if you guys have any suggestions for us on or crimes against stories like this, or crimes against folk related, please feel free to email them to us or share them with us in a little DM, because we might just do a future episode on it.
Yep.
And I just want to make a couple of quick announcements moving on. Number one being, we have a show of our own coming up this weekend, and it's going to be on Saturday the 19th at 12 p.m. noon p.m. Pacific time. The reason we're doing that is because we have a lot of friends and fans overseas, so we wanted to give a time that is good for both our American friends and our European friends. So hopefully that'll work for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and drop a link to that in the show stream so you can get your seat. It's going to be an hour and a half of Witherword music. We'll probably throw some covers in there as well. But what I'm super excited about is Ed and I are actually rehearsing new material for the show, and you have not heard it before. So there will be at least 3 or 4, maybe even 6 songs that you haven't heard before that we're going to debut on Saturday with High Plateau Productions. So hopefully you guys get your seat. It's kind of a pay what you can scenario. There's a suggestion for $5. There's a suggestion for $10. And then there's a suggestion for fill in the blank, as in pay us whatever you can to attend the show. If that's 0, please type in 0 and attend the show, because we understand a lot of people are going through hard times right now, and we want you to be able to enjoy the show with us no matter what. So we trust you. Give what you can, and follow the links, and hopefully we'll see you guys there.
Yep.
And then just another quick second announcement I want to make is that we have started a Crimes Against Folk Facebook group. However, it's exclusive to our patrons. And one of the main reasons we started this is because we're having a tough time getting all of our patrons the link to the pre-show, which we do a little half an hour pre-show before every single episode on Sundays at around 12:30 Pacific time. So if you are a patron and you don't have the link to this group, please also send us an email or a DM, and we'll make sure that you get in, and so you can get your links. We're going to be sharing all kinds of stuff to this. And if you want in on our Patreon page, this is only $5 a month, you guys, to join. And we're really, really pushing it because we're trying to build a Crimes Against Folk community. So thank you so much for those of you who are already in the community, and everybody else, we want you in too. $5 a month. That's it. You get all kinds of stuff, including every week you'll be able to join the pre-show concert, which is usually just 3 or 4 songs, but Ed and I play a little bit before each episode, and you can join that with the link that we will send you on the Facebook group. Also, you get all kinds of bonus stuff, like you'll get the tips and tricks. If you're a musician, this is going to be really good for you. If you're in marketing or just anything, you're just interested, you'll learn about how we do stuff behind the scenes, which there is so much. Once a month, you're going to get a full story behind the song, like how we created a song from start to finish. And you'll get the full story about the song and how we recorded it, how we released it. If there's a music video, how we did the music video. It's a lot of fun. Again, this is all included just at the $5 a month option. I'm sure I'm leaving stuff out too, but there's all kinds of stuff, bonus stories. And then there's higher options too. If you want to give a little bit more, there's other tiers. You do get a little bit more for the more you donate per month, but you do get all of that just for $5 a month.
Yep.
That was a lot.
So yeah, just check it out at patreon.com/crimesagainstfolk. That way you will be able to see all the options available. We do have a couple higher tiers as well. There's a producer tier that will allow you to join in on a post show, which happens directly after the main broadcast. So if you want to ask us extra questions, you can do it there. That way, you can just kind of hang out with us and we'll chat. But next, I think we will show a video highlight of our own.
Yeah. And
this one I ran across today because I don't think I'd actually ever seen the broadcast of this. We had stopped in and did an interview with our good friend Brad Perry at the AZ Daily Mix. And I ran across the YouTube video of that. And I don't think I had ever seen it before. So I wanted to share it with everybody because it is actually pretty cool. It was a really fun experience because Brad is really easy to work with. So I wanted to just share that with everybody. And so we'll show you this video of our appearance on the AZ Daily Mix.
I'm so excited to introduce our Daily Mix viewers to this band. I'm a little nervous because I'm getting a little teary-eyed too. I grew up with this band when I started playing music. Stephanie, who's on the violin, pretty much was my right-hand person when I started playing music, which is amazing. Ashley, I met, it's been 19 years. And watching her grow. And then there's Ed. All right, so anyways, and then there's Ed. How are you, Ashley?
I'm great. It's so good to see you.
Let's get this straight, because all these years I've known her. How long have you had this band?
Witherward's been 6 years now.
6 years?
I think so, yeah.
So for 7 years, I've been saying Weatherward. So, and it's actually Witherward. And she always talks about it. It's like, Brad, it's Witherward. It's Witherward. And I go Weatherward, even everything I do.
We got it sorted this morning.
We did. We got it all taken care of.
We're good now.
Again, I introduced Ed and, of course, Stephanie. You go ahead and introduce him. Ed is who?
This is Edward Williams. He and I co-founded Witherward in Nashville when I moved there some years ago. And we've just been kind of on tour for forever. And then we started coming back to Phoenix and somehow picked up this woman. Yeah. And she's what we call our secret weapon. She came to our first gig in her pajamas. She did.
That's funny. She came to my first gig in her pajamas too. So I guess it's
I knew it.
I know it. So, but yeah, she's like a secret weapon in the world of violin and mandolin and everything and voice and everything that I didn't know she had because she was very quiet with me. And all of a sudden now she has this beautiful voice. You have a beautiful voice.
Aww.
Let's remind people, Forrest, that you've been here. I mean, you're from here.
Yeah.
And what was the first band you was called?
Delcoa. Yeah, and I was with Delcoa for many, many years with Jay Allen, Ethan Newman, Jay Poole, Tony King. And we had a lot of great local gigs. That's how we met you. And then I ruined everything by moving to Nashville.
And then,
but then I have this wonderful project now. And
it is a project. I want to show up just one of your CDs. We'll go here. And let's go ahead and tell the story about you really quick, because this is a very interesting story, is that you and Ed one day said, you know what? why are we continuing to have a home base? Let's just put everything in storage, and you guys just hit the road for how many years?
We were on the road for almost 5 years full time without a home base. Everything went into storage because we were just touring so much that we were like, why are we going to pay for a place? Let's just get rid of that expense and just keep going. And that's what we did. We went to Europe 3 different times. This last summer we went for 2.5 months. And we were lucky when we get to take Stephanie with us. She comes on the road with us quite a bit. And then we come back to Phoenix and catch our breath and then go out again.
And listen, people, if you understand, you're talking about artists that are dedicated to their craft, everything. I know we're going to get into their music, but I'm so proud of them because they literally, for 5 years, have been couch surfing. And you're talking about artists that will literally go to someone and go, hey, you liked our gig? Great. Can we sleep on your couch tonight? And people like open their doors to you.
Well, we're more picky now. We're like, what are your spare bedrooms like? How comfortable is your bed? And we'll decide if we're going to stay there or not.
But before you were pretty much asking, that's great. Okay, you guys are performing. You want everybody to come out. So
Yes.
tomorrow, Saturday, where are you guys at?
Saturday, we're at the Tempe History Museum at 7 o'clock. It's free show to the public. It's Tempe History Museum. It's been doing this for the community, and it's a really wonderful show full of stories behind the songs and a Q&A afterwards, and we're really excited about it. Beautiful stage and seating and everything, so come on out.
I love it. And you have to check out their videos that this gentleman right here actually shoots and edits and everything, and then Stephanie just looks like, oh, look at my shoes. So, all right. What are you going to play for us?
We have a song off of our latest album. We have 6 albums released that are all self-produced, Ed engineers everything. And the latest one is called Human Album. So we're going to do a couple of songs off of that. All of our albums are available online only at the moment because we sold out of physical copies.
I love it. All right, you got to catch again Wither Ward at the Tempe
History Museum.
That's right. On
Saturday,
Check
7
them out.
p.m.
There they are.
I wanna sit at a bar, figure you out, and climactic conversation. And I wanna make up a song and write it about our endless born conclusions. It's just who we are. I hope you wrote every note you slipped under my door. And I hope that you know someone will study the dent in my wall, wondering what happened here and where we are now. There goes of Germantown. I wanna ride in your car and drive to the edge to figure out all of our problems. And I wanna sip on your beer and sit way too close and forget that we can't solve them. It's just who we are. And I hope you wrote every note you slipped under my door. I hope that you know someone will study the dent in my wall, wondering what happened here and where we are now. Where ghosts of Germantown. I wanna be in your house and listen all night to all of your haunted stories. You put me on the couch, 'cause I shouldn't drive. It's just how it goes. It's just who we are. And I hope you wrote every note you slipped under my door. to God you know. Someone will study the dent in my wall, wondering what the hell happened here, where we are now. There goes the Germantown. There goes the Germantown. There goes the Germantown.
All right. So that was our appearance in the AZ Daily Mix with our good friend Brad Perry. That was a fun, that was, again, like, to me, it was really fun to just go out and you see all these different studios when we do these studio things to see how they do stuff.
Yeah,
And,
it's really cool.
like a quick turnover too, because it's like, oh, you're in, like, bam, you do it, and then you're out. You know?
Yeah, I feel like we've done enough of them in our career where we just kind of get it now. We're like, you wait for your turn, second they point at you, you go, and then and then at some point they'll be like, yeah, we stopped rolling 10 seconds ago, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
usually
it's
your
funny.
fans at home are like, but they only played 20 seconds of your song, and you're like, yep. Every
Yep.
time.
That's television. Yeah, that was pretty fun though.
Yeah, we should
we-
see if Brad Perry wants to come on as a guest sometime.
Yeah, we can get in touch with him
Yeah,
and get that going because
he's got quite the interesting career himself.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So before we go into show and tell, Ash sent me the the old album cover we were going to use for Crimes Against Folk.
Yeah, if you were listening to the beginning of the show, you would have heard us discuss this photo, and I found it. And so if you're watching live, Ed will show it to you now, and if you're listening afterwards, we'll put it in our show notes or post it on Instagram or a Facebook page or something.
Yeah, we've mentioned this before. I just haven't found it until now. But yeah, so that's Tara's is a watercolor.
Yeah, it's a watercolor that my sister Tara Norton did on of a puppy. And it's really cute. And so when we were talking about Crimes Against Folk as our alter ego metal band name or something like that, I was like, I just thought it would be so funny if that were our album cover. Which we do have. Maybe it'll be our single cover, Ed.
Yeah, maybe.
Why not?
But yeah, I thought that was funny. She sent like after I think it was the night that I had the day that we had talked about it, and then later you sent me that.
Yeah, I think I
day.
made it, and she sent it to me, and I was like, I'm just gonna put Crimes Against Folk on this puppy.
That was so funny. But yeah, we want to show and tell now.
Yay!
It is my turn this week. I have two things to show because one kind of follows the other.
Yeah, you can't have one without the other.
True. So this particular photo is from our travels in Germany. And this was 2018, I believe, and the first time we stayed with Isabel and Tobias Kona. And they're just super, super awesome people. Friends of Barb and Howard. And we were passing through the area, and they're like, "Oh, come stay with us." And they had a really nice place. Really cool. They had two cool daughters there who were just really nice and really just, I don't know, there's something really cool about them.
They took us to this cool castle, and
Yeah, we went to Hildesheim Castle. And that chapel as well, the 1,000-year-old chapel.
yeah,
But one of the more interesting things is Tobias is a brass player, but he also has a full-size Alp horn. And if you've never seen an actual Alp horn before, except in a Ricola commercial, here it is. So we're on their back porch, and there's Ash and Tobias, and on the table there is the full-size Alp horn, and it has a mouthpiece that's very similar, I believe, to a trombone. And I believe that is what Tobias plays. I think it's trombone, or it might be tuba. I can't exactly remember, but it's one of the brass instruments, and he plays like in bands for like parades and stuff like that. And he's very good at it. And luckily enough, he deigned to give us a demonstration of what this Alp horn actually sounds like. So, take a listen to what an actual Alp horn sounds like.
Okay.
Can you breathe still?
Wow. So there you have it. There you have it. That's what.
A lot of breath control there.
Yeah, and it clearly wore him out. Like, that is not an easy instrument to play.
No. I think he's like stand on the chair to play it.
I remember when they brought it out, bringing it through the house. They have a pretty small kitchen.
Yeah.
And it was almost nearly knocked over half the stuff in the kitchen.
Yeah. I mean, you'd probably have to take it apart, right? To transport it and things like that.
I think so. I think, yeah. You have to disassemble it, at least. It splits into, I think, 3 or 4 different parts.
How do you change the notes on it, though? Or is it just like one note?
The embouchure, yeah, like the embouchure and the amount of breath that you blow through it would change the notes. Like, it behaves very similarly to like a bugle.
Okay.
Which is why I think he was playing taps on it, which was interesting because that's one of the songs you would play on the bugle.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you would just change how much air you push through and the shape of your lips and everything, and that can get you a few more notes than you normally would out of it.
Wow.
So
yeah,
I always thought that was impressive. I remember that being just one of the most impressive things on that tour, and one of the most fun things because they were really they were really cool and wanted to show us around, but also they had a bit of music in their family. One of their daughters was actually a pretty good pianist.
Yeah, she was good.
So I think that's it's really nice.
It was.
that they shared that with us.
This is what I love about our show and tell segment, though, is I forget about these things. Like I probably wouldn't have remembered that unless I came across it on Facebook or unless Ed shared it with us, which he did. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I think we put this at the end of that region's Songs from a Subaru.
Ah, okay.
I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah, we must have.
Because that was just so cool. I'm like, we got to put this in.
If you guys aren't familiar with our Songs from a Subaru series, that's a rabbit hole you can go down on YouTube one day. We have lots and lots of videos and lots of episodes of Songs from a Subaru, and 22 of them came from that particular European tour where we did a Songs from a Subaru episode in every city on our tour. In fact, you might even see yourself in some of them. You never know.
Yep.
But just search for Witherword and Songs from a Subaru and they'll pop up.
Yep. So that's my show and tell. A little bit of Alphorn action there. Genuine Alphorn from Germany.
Nice show and tell today, Ed. And
Thank you.
Fantastic job on the Bob Dylan story.
Thanks.
So if you guys showed up late, just we'll be posting this on... We'll be posting the replay immediately, or you can listen to us on Spotify or iHeartRadio or Amazon Music. Basically, wherever you listen to your music or your podcasts, you will be able to find Crimes Against Folk. And take a listen, give us a follow, leave us a review. That would be really, really helpful if you guys could leave us a review, actually.
Absolutely.
On anything, anywhere. If you like us, a little review goes a long way. So
all right, we'll finish it out with a song here.
Cool. Does that song sound good to you, Ed?
Yeah, I'll give it a go.
I don't know what made me pick this one today. It just seemed appropriate. Oh, I know why. Because I wanted you to play your electric.
Oh. Right.
Your electric guitar, anyway. This is I don't know, maybe what do we call this one? Folk blues, maybe? Is that right?
Like jazzy folk or something. I don't know.
Jazzy folk, whatever you want to call it.
It's jazzy, but it's not jazz.
Yeah, careful because you'll offend the jazz. I'm sure we've offended all the folk people today, so let's not offend the jazz people as well.
Yeah, right. So yeah, this is called Deaf, Dumb, and Blind. I used to know I loved you, but now it's all gone wrong. The image I cultivated from your sweet siren song. You never said as such, but I advanced too much. I used to think we could have had something so strong. Well, you must be deaf, dumb, and blind. Deaf, dumb, and blind. Deaf, dumb, and blind. Deaf, dumb, and blind. Speak up, speak up, speak up, speak up, 'cause I can hardly hear but the sound of your madness. You cannot see what is to be, but you're telling me what's going down. My dear, thou doth protest a bit too much, I guess. Your mouth is open, but I can't hear a word that's coming out. Well, you must be deaf, dumb, and blind. got your sanctimony. You've got your cross to bear. You've got your acrimony. Well, I've got a heart that cares. A heart that cares too much to let you go. It twists and turns at night, but you would never know. So I can find myself to visions of a world where you and I give it a whirl. You must be so in love with me, so in love with me. We'll be together in sunny weather. There is no reason we can't live forever. The walls that pad this room are nice and thick, and the jacket's warm too. The dreams I have of you are good and bad, even though we are through. I've never seen a love so vivid in spite of the fact that it never, ever once existed at all. What remains of this brain creates a victory hall. I've got my golden palace suspended in the air. I've got my sweet illusion. You will be waiting there. Nice, nice.
Nice.
All right, thanks everybody.
Guys.
So
See
good
ya.
to see you today.
Remember, we
extra-
got a whole hour of that coming up on Saturday the 19th at 12 o'clock Pacific time. So I'm dropping the links in the live chat one more time. Hopefully you guys can join us to that.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'll see you on Sunday, the 20th, for our next episode of Crimes Against Folk. And just to note that we are taking Christmas weekend off.
And
So-
New Year's.
And right. So it actually, come on out on Saturday and Sunday next weekend, because we'll be taking 2 full weeks off after that. We do have a little surprise bonus thing that we're going to send out to everybody, but we're going to
And
take the
you'll
holidays
still
off.
patrons still get stuff during these breaks too. So if you still want to get new stuff from us, definitely consider checking out our Patreon page, because we'll still be putting up new stuff on Patreon as well. So
Yep. And I guess if you guys want to join if you're already a patron and you want to join the Crimes Against Folk Facebook group, we will be dropping that link today in the Patreon feed, or just shoot us a message, either an email or a DM, and ask for it, and we'll send it to you so make sure we get in. So much information. Sorry, all for all the information, but we have a lot of stuff to tell you about.
Yep. So we're gonna producer level patrons. We're gonna do the post show right now. But thanks everybody for joining us today, and we will see you next week.
Yeah.